Okay, hello everybody. Welcome. I am streaming for the first time to Theta, DLive, YouTube, and Twitch all at the same time. So thank you for bearing with me as I figured out some technical difficulties. I think my voice is, my voice is still unsynced. And I recognize that. That's what I was making sure of with the headphones. So that is my public service announcement before we get going here, as I realize the voice is unsynced. This is my first time doing this from all of my soundboards through OBS and Restream, and I just couldn't get the syncing figured out in time. So as a matter of fact, we are going to just dive right in, because as the title of the video suggests, we're going to talk a little bit about the GameStop situation and silver squeeze situation that many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with by this point in time. But I'm going to be going a little bit deeper into certain topics because of my background in securities and blockchain industry overlap, kind of the fintech space proper is what you might call that. But we are going to cover some ground on what I see in the markets, what I see transpiring over the next week into the next month, because we've got some things, at least over in my community, of course, that we've decoded accurately as it pertains to, well, the rituals that we see at hand. If you're new to my channel, this is where you can find a lot of the deep dive stuff here over on Patreon. This is where we have been covering some of the deeper topics and rituals that are playing out in course of what we call the year 0 in 2020 and year 1, 2021. The decodes that we've been doing, of course, have to do with the V-steganography that the community is becoming an expert archaeologist team, rather. I'm really quite pleased with the V-Cipher community's growth and effort to solve stuff using the tools that we started over on YouTube. Of course, now that I'm simulcasting to YouTube, you can find all my old videos publicly over here too. But the Patreon ones ended up being what's the right word? Too hot for YouTube. They won't process. They wouldn't upload. I started having to upload them over. Give them access to my patrons. But since I'm changing course a little bit and launching all these other platforms, and I'm also going to have a different platform to post my Patreon videos to, I'm switching those over to Brighteon. I also want to let everybody know that you can access my my Patreon videos, even if you're just a public member of YouTube, for free now, because I am going to, just a sec. Here we go. Log in here, as I forgot to do this. I've made all of my private videos over on BitChute public. A couple of these in here, and BitChute's even having trouble uploading my videos. But if you are not a patron, I'm going to drop the link to my BitChute in the description starting now on. because these are all going to be made public from here on in. You'll have to be a patron to get the future videos that I post, of course, because those are going to go into Brighteon. Like I said, you got to at least be at the $3 a month level in order for that to apply to you. But this is what I'm gifting to everybody that's coming into year one, the knowledge that got us here, basically. And it didn't happen over on YouTube or the public channels. So anyway, again, I'll be posting my BitChute in the description below after the end of this video, and you guys can catch up to your heart's content on all the craziness that we've decoded, starting with, of course, the mind control rituals back in June that pertain to Batman and a lot of what we went over last time in my video, which was this one right here. I actually posted this one to Theta. If you go to my Theta page, the last Patreon video I posted is right here, Batman in year one, and the rituals of the Super Bowl. And so why am I sharing all this with you in a finance related video that's supposed to be about GameStop and silver? Well, you may have to catch up on some of this stuff to just in order to think intelligently or critically about this. I mean, if you're watching live, of course, follow along. But you now know where to go as well if you need some further context what we're about to go into. Because ancient Earth history is all tied to the monetary reset. In fact, we're going to start my video off by watching one of my videos here that I did not too long ago based on the winter solstice ritual. Part 1 of this video can also be found on my Theta page right here. This is the one to watch to truly get a representation of the finance and reset ritual that was lined up with the winter solstice last year. This is a 3.5 hour long video. We're only going to watch a clip of the follow-up. And of course, like I said, the follow-up is posted here, and we're going to watch a few minutes of this, of my analysis from at the end of 2020 and how it's affected what we're going into right now and how it foretold a little bit of the financial collapse. From there, we're going to go talk about traditional securities markets, and you guys will hopefully understand how crypto plays a part in that future and how things are being manipulated actually beyond your control to truly affect even with these Wall Street bets types. So without further ado, that's what we're going to do. We're going to get right into it. I'm going to start plus video. Again, this is my analysis that is now just basically 3 months old. So the end of November, that I guess 2 months old, just over 2 months old that I rendered this. It has everything to do with the monetary reset rule that, of course, if you watch this video here, you'll understand better of why the winter solstice is that day. But this has to pertain to money. So let's listen along. Where Bill Gates rather is quoted saying, he was such a wizard at over-motivating people. I was a minor wizard, so I couldn't fall under his spells, but I could see him casting the spells, you know, all this stuff that we've gone over so many times. And we're just talking about wizardry in the marketplace, guys. I mean, if, let me, for a moment, let me show you guys a little bit of a, just a little bit of a preamble to this, right? This is a theme that we've been talking about on my channel for quite some time. The Wizard of Oz, the path to the yellow brick road. And that's why I opened up these videos to my public members as well, at least the ones that I've been doing and posted to BitChute thus far, because this is the theme that you've seen also on the static screen on my live streams. It's because we're all on the road to Oz, and there's this big Wizard of Oz ritual that is playing out. And so I suppose I didn't set that up to give you guys further context before I'm talking about the wizardry here at play with the money reset and the Templars. But you'll see here in a second why this all ties together. So let me get back to, of course, the video and keep going along with this. And of course, the gematria that we ascribe it all to with the Wizard of Oz rituals. Okay. So there is a spell being broken
when you see something like this, or at least an attempt at fizzling the spell, as you might put
And
it.
I'm talking about 9/11 here and the first attempt at the banking collapse.
Some time until, so the banking reset, I would argue that one faction wanted the banking reset to occur right here on 9/11 because they and their astrologers likely knew and were in a race against the clock against this astrology. It's my supposition that the Templars intended for the transition to happen right here, right now. And that there was a faction, again, that was in control of taking down the Twin Towers, that was headquartered here at the Pentagon, had the Earth Grid Control Network, the DC Parasite Network. Go back to my work on YouTube of last year, and you can learn all about the DC Parasite Network and what that conveys in the ley line structures of the Earth, right? All to where we can save the ritual and protect the ritual by way of the Templars erecting fences around this thing, you know, lining it with security detail, so we could transition into something, right? I want you guys to keep an eye on the NFL for this year. We've been keeping an eye on the NFL a lot. The Seattle Seahawks, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We've talked about the Buccaneers because of the Jolly Roger. They represent the Templars themselves.
So here's your first thing to make note of. And yeah, I'm noticing that the video is not necessarily high quality when we're playing through BitChute. BitChute, this is why I'm leaving BitChute, guys. Like, BitChute has just become a pain in my ass. I can't upload videos to them anymore because it times out. It's not because they're censoring anything. It's just because, you know, their tech sucks. It can't scale. It's not, well, they're trying to build a server farm, and I don't know if they can keep up with capacity. So anyway, the Templars mention here, this is of course, going back to those videos I mentioned, you'll learn all about the Templars, but there's a reason why last summer we were all talking about over on this community why Tom Brady was going to be in the Super Bowl. And this is kind of what I was talking about in this video here, is recounting those themes and why we were thinking that long before the playoffs even started. I correctly guessed all of the NFL results in the playoffs except for the Bills and the Templars to be, or the Buccaneers, where Tom Brady plays now, to be in the Super Bowl. I correctly guessed all of the outcomes except for that last one, where didn't think the Chiefs were going to overcome the Bills. I explained in my last video, that's now available to everybody, why that was, and you can go back and watch that. That's the one that's posted to Theta. Again, right here, Batman in year one, Templar Super Bowl 55 ritual. Okay. So I closed out why that was, but the fact of the matter is I was talking about the Buccaneers being in the Super Bowl for quite some time. And it was only around this time where I realized, oh my gosh, the Super Bowl 55, 5 is the significant number in our community for the V-steganography, is going to be hosted in Tampa Bay. So it would be a home game for the Buccaneers / Templars, as the occult spells go, if this were to occur. So it's very interesting indeed. And I encourage you guys to keep this in mind now as I continue on with the rest of this Patreon presentation that I'm going to go back to now. But there's some additional context for you. I'm just doing my best to bring up the YouTube crowd on some of these things that the patrons already know. And so I'm doing my best to just maintain a pace here for you. Get back into this. The Buccaneers, the Jolly Roger, X marks the spot. X marks the spot on the New Madrid fault, where our eclipse rituals,
the two completed paths of the solar eclipses happen 7 years apart from each other. The cosmology for the 7 years of tribulation attributed into the book of Revelation. The Vesica Pisces is where the X is pointing to. And the Vesica Pisces, that the phallic symbol of the Washington Monument now sits inside of.
This is part of the ritual.
going through, of course, the vesica Pisces, the birth canal, to inseminate the egg on the 21st of this year.
Ellipse Park being the
Buccaneers are
egg.
important because of the temp.
Ellipse Park is the egg, guys. You're gonna have to watch that other video again to get a hang of that concept. But that is the ritual. It's a complex one, and V steganography and fives all over it. And this is how we've been decoding this year's reset overall, and how the Templars are involved, and the Buccaneers being in the Super Bowl, of course, portends all of the secrets coming out. All of the secrets coming out. This is what we're about to find out. I mean, you'll find out all of our ancient history is down in Antarctica, for instance, all based around the finance system, all based around a reset ritual, all based around doing away with old system money, old system paradigm of academia, old system paradigm of history. Again, that's what I'm talking about there. So again, keep that in mind. That's the primer.
Templars
Let's keep going on.
The actual Christ knowledge. The Seahawks are important because they represent Horus, the ability to look directly into the sun. And so in a way, they represent Christ. We also have, when you're looking at these other factions, they're doing terribly. The Eagles who won Super Bowl 52, the last significant V Super Bowl 52, remember 5 times 5 is 25. When you flip it reverse, it's 52. And what was Super Bowl 52? The Glass-Steagall Bowl, where they played Super Bowl 52 in a glass stadium, US Bank Stadium, up in Minnesota. And here's our first clue for what's going on today, guys. This is Glass-Steagall, 1999 act that prevented banks from engaging in the open market speculation of securities prior to 1999. Bill Clinton repealed that, one of his last orders of business as president. When this happened, the speculations on the markets began. And this is where we get the situation we're in right now. This is our first thing into the GameStop ritual. GameStop. The game is up. The jig is up. They finally found him, right? Like the Styx song. So that's what this is all about. I just want to clarify. One of the places, of course, it's very significant because where the Kensington Runestone is. The place where the Templars originally had their land claim for the United States. 200 years before Columbus ever set foot here, 150 years before Columbus ever set foot here. This is all maybe why they, as the Templars, are showing us things like this, and maybe why they have the authority to say this is what the principles always were. The money reset. The money reset. They are changing the back of these coins after 75 years, which is a Jubilee year in 2021. 75th anniversary is a diamond anniversary. Washington, D.C. is in the shape of a diamond. We're resetting the economy right around the center with this big Washington Monument ritual. Again, go back and watch those videos. But this is where the money reset comes in. Once this happened on winter solstice 2020, December 21st of last year, this reset ritual began. And we are now seeing it gestate. It was an insemination ritual, like I said, and now we're seeing it gestate. Abolish the government
with things like this.
Return it to liberty. Return the land to liberty.
And the spell, of course, they're eliminating the United States of America, the Tails, the Eagle faction, the Nazi faction, and reinstating the goddess, the liberty, the freedom-loving society, where they don't owe their allegiance to this federal government. Is this the ritual that's playing out? Right? That's what we're going over in this video. Let me continue. All of the teams that are doing well, the Buccaneers, the Saints, which is the fleur-de-lis, right? The fleur-de-lis on top of the phoenix's head that burns the old system to the ground. Those are the Saints. And you've also got the Pittsburgh Steelers and Buffalo Bills doing really well. The Patriots are sucking wind. The Patriot faction, where the Patriot Act got instituted right after all of this and reigned with all those Super Bowls and Tom Brady for all those years,
They now suck, and Tom Brady's playing for the other side. Okay. And then you have the Steelers at 9-0, the best team of all. And the Buffalo Bills, of course, representing the Nikola Tesla paradigm and the technology of Nikola Tesla because of the Niagara Falls institution of hydroelectric power, his first application where people started to realize what his genius was.
And so there you go. There was the mistake that I made with the ritual where I thought the Bills were going to be playing the Templars in the Super Bowl because the Bills represent Nikola Tesla's technology. And obviously all the Wizard of Oz rituals that we saw for the rest of this year that were playing out, they matched up with this. This was not to be the case, of course, but the Chiefs, representing the commander-in-chief, and Donald Trump killed the buffalo and consumed it. Remember, Donald Trump was always with the Space Force. He was the one that released Space Force to the world in 2019. So how did all these things play into the grandeur theater that we see? This is just reflected in the Super Bowl, of course. So it's basically Templars versus Commander-in-Chiefs. The outcome of either one is interesting, right? But that's where I went wrong. Where I guessed every correct result in the playoffs once they were set, except for the final game where I thought the Bills were going to be in the Super Bowl. Anyway, I'll continue here. And this is, again, what I only based those picks based on the occult rituals that were in front of us using the V-steganography to decode.
But it's actually the Pittsburgh Steelers where it gets weird, guys. Because again, Keystone State, Pennsylvania. What do we know about Pennsylvania? Go back to this video, tie the knots together. But we're talking about real briefly here. Pennsylvania is at the linchpin. They call it the Keystone State. And it is at the heart of whoever proves the election fraud for or against one candidate or the other. Let's say Trump proves the election fraud exists in this state, as well as Georgia and Michigan. This is all he needs to overturn everything. And the Keystone gets taken out of the arch, and the arch of the country falls down. Remember, the original 13 colonies. Now, the arch still fell, but for a different reason. The ritual was still for the Keystone State, of course, but it fell a different way. We'll go down to that in a second. Which were not this United States. That was when we were still a libertarian society, New Jerusalem proper, in its infant stage. That's when we had the flag sewn and the moniker of the Keystone State labeled. So the Keystone State is all over everything that's pervading from here on in. And so you got to watch Washington, D.C. inside the diamond on the diamond anniversary.
There's that diamond anniversary
Washington,
again.
D.C., the protection that they're rendering around Ellipse Park to allow this ritual to happen. And then you also have to see the election steal that was attempted.
The Steelers.
Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Not the same kind of steal.
That's why they didn't make it very far in the playoffs or anything like this. Once the reset happened, what you'll see with the symbolism in their logo, it'll be very apparent to you too. But when you're casting magic, it's the same harmonic structure when you speak it. It's a clue. The election stealers, or the attempt at to steal the election, right? You look at their logo, and their logo is the classic Steelers Union, when steel was the predominant output of the city. But you've got red and blue, but then you have gold at the top. And I'm wondering how to interpret this. But to me, it says the gold system is coming in, and this is the top. Red is going to win the election fraud over blue. I was wrong about that.
Steal.
There's where I was wrong. It just ended up being a battle between the two to heighten up and boost the gold system. It didn't matter who won, because ultimately we have a sham presidency under the cheat. It's funny. The video was 46 at that point in time too. Isn't that funny?
But gold, a new standard, a reset, is actually what we're going to get, because after the fraud is proven, the arch is going to collapse. As everybody correctly ascribes, I don't think there's going to be a lot of agreement as to what to do from there with the leadership. So could this be a canvassing mechanism yet again of what's happening? I'm beginning to see the NFL in light that has nothing to do with like any Zionist factions or anything that Zach would point out, because the Templars use gematria too. I'm actually starting to see the NFL and the MLB, the baseball and the football leagues, as tools of the Templars, at least now, to cast the spells in favor of us finding things out. I don't think it's always been that way. But just like anything, you can requisition a tool like the NFL. It's a mind control device. And if one faction gets control of it, they can now use it for whatever they want. And I think this is what the whole thing with Tom Brady going from the Patriots to the Buccaneers this year was all about. The chosen one, the best player that ever lived, the GOAT, the greatest of all time. The scapegoat is, one way that I think you can also look at those things. The scapegoat for what? The scapegoat for the spell. And this is a very Hebrew concept, and that's so again, something we'll go into another time. But that I'm setting the stage for Pittsburgh now. It's another Pennsylvania state, because as it relates to the 75th anniversary here, 75 in the Bible also,
and the Jubilee,
the year of Jubilees.
Yep.
Talked about that last time too, where Jubilees happen every 75 years. And it's interesting because if you simply look at the other team that plays in town.
All right, I'm going to pause it right here, because this. So basically what I'm saying here, guys, so far in this video is the NFL's timed with this reset scenario. It's also been a 5-year long reset scenario, as I went through in my last Patreon video over on Theta, that you can find over on Theta. This is very complex. Go back and learn about this stuff. But what we're talking about here is the Super Bowl and sports being all interwoven together to canvas what the actual theater is in politics, in actual news. It's all the same. And so the themes bleed in and out through these, and for different agendas. I'm speaking to the Templars' presumed agenda here. And as you can look at on this next part of the slide, next part of the presentation, rather video, you're going to notice a couple of things in plain sight that lend credence to what we're going through in terms of the monetary reset. Now, my GoPro just went off. It ended up getting too hot, it says. Oh, well, I'm not using it anyway right now. So, the structures themselves, the shapes of the structures, this is what I want you to keep in mind. How they line up with the sports and how they line up with the news. This is how the V-steganography applies to breaking out the financial reset. And this is all in an effort to bring up your knowledge base before I hammer home the what's going on with the GameStop stuff, of course. And so you have a better preamble of how to digest it, okay? So that was just a quick break. We're going to get into some things that lend more than just the gematria and result credence to the symbology in the sports. I get into the banking collapse stuff proper.
Town that has the same colors, the same
so
gold colors.
PNC Park, where also Pittsburgh.
As the Steelers, it's the Pirates.
And remember, the Steelers were very significant in the news at the time. They were still undefeated. They were the best team in the NFL, and the election steal was going on. So that was the ritual in play. And then the timing of this news was everything.
You're starting to see where I'm going with this, guys. Pirates are Templars. What were we talking about? Buccaneers, Pirates are Templars.
Aha.
So there's a connection here.
Hey, Doug,
This
619.
Keystone State. I mean, just look at
Good to have you.
115 Federal Street. We've talked about how this number connects to V steganography in the past as well. Is the address of the park, and it's sponsored by PNC Bank. PNC Bank. This is where it's starting to get fun. Hey, Chef. Tom's a Trump fan too. Would you mind elaborating on who Tom is for me, Chef?
So 115, those were the same numbers as 151, of course, that we saw last week in the video I did, ultimately about the Templars in the Super Bowl. You can catch that video right over here. Okay. Over on Theta. But this is kind of neat. We're going into this stuff regarding the same numbers, because 151 is like Century Boulevard is where the Bristol Speedway was. 115 is where PNC Park is. So the ones and fives, again, of course, are the hallmark of where the Templars seem to put addresses and affix them to their significant properties too. I also got something. Doug said he's from Pittsburgh originally. Very cool. And Sufik says Nasara. Hope that's true. Unfortunately, Sufik, there's so many reasons why Nasara just won't work in terms of being able to reconcile what needs to be reconciled. It's partially what we're going to get into here today, is the complexity of the securities industry, and actually why stuff like Nasara won't transpire like a lot of people think it will. But anyway, there's your brief segue into this. It's interesting at these addresses, of course, more hits as to why the Templars are behind probably this banking reset. We'll continue on with what we found in the ritual.
Or Mike Tomlin. Is that what you mean? The head coach? Is that what you're talking about? Mike Tomlin of the Steelers. But what I'm getting at here is we've got some tie-overs with PNC Park, the Pirates, and a recent announcement that got made the other day. PNC, ooh, that's not a color I want. Ugh, you guys can't read that very well. Let me get this out. Yellow instead. Oh, Tom Brady. Tom Brady is a Trump fan too. I see what you're saying, Tom Brady. Yeah, I have heard that as well. I haven't watched.
There's another clue I should have picked up on for myself, that Tom Brady and Donald Trump's a Tom Brady fan. The Chiefs are the commander-in-chiefs representing Trump. Should have guessed. Well, missed it, but that's okay.
Watched the narratives of the football players in quite some time, since I was unindoctrinated from all of this, just to show that, the results are predetermined in some fashion. But good point to make. Either way, Shaf. Thanks for the ad. Back to the presentation, guys.
Hey, Sonic Alchemy. Good to have you.
Guys, again, the Pirates, the Templars are associated here in some way with both of these outfits. And PNC, the bank that sponsors the Pirates and always has since the opening of that ballpark, made a key acquisition this last week. So November 16th, press release came out that PNC, alongside the Spanish financial group Banco Bilbao, because their acquisition, BBVA, is headquartered over there. They made an $11.6 billion purchase of BBVA to make them the 5th largest bank in the United States by asset size.
Remember, guys, V steganography 5. If you're new to this stuff over on YouTube, the patrons are certainly versed in all of the deep steganography stuff, but I don't go as deep on YouTube anymore. So that's why it matters. There's your 5th largest bank. There's more. It's V steganography right out of the gate, right?
11.6 billion has something to do, I think, with the date numerology too, because of how it matches. It didn't have a ton to do with what we're talking about when we broke it down, but the 104 billion of assets that BBVA, USA Bank Shares assets holds in Houston, it's the reverse of 41. and the reverse of the spell for the gematria as it relates to, of course, Wizard of Oz, whatever the Oz ritual is that's keeping us down, the bank lies that seep into our everyday lives. And what you end up getting, though, is ultimately, I saw right away when I saw this story, even beyond the V steganography I was able to find that connects to what we're studying. If you guys have never seen PNC's logo, this is PNC's logo. It's the St. Augustine Trinity laid over the top of Bitcoin Orange.
Of course, people who are in the patron community have seen a lot of this stuff, but we're going to get into a couple of concepts here, guys, that may or may not be familiar to you, but they're metaphysical in nature. So try to follow. This is all money is a metaphysical representation of something. So keep this top of mind and do your best to, just stay with it.
Bitcoin Orange, it's the same shade. I've taken this and applied matching to it in Photoshop with a sampling of different, the color varies a little bit depending on where you get the logos from, but the tolerance is so close. It's uncanny. It's Bitcoin Orange with the St. Augustinian Trinity at the middle. And my argument, of course, with the Wizards and the Templars is that they are Satoshi Nakamoto in some manner or fashion. Steve Jobs, in my eyes, was one of these Templars. And Alan Greenspan appears to be one of these Templars, along with a couple of other folks that you should watch Bix Weir's work, so I don't, steal his thunder for, educating you guys about his stuff. But what we're finding specifically with the banking rituals is that the guys with the metaphysics are taking control. The guys with the metaphysics, where are we going here? The St. Augustinian Trinity, the guys that understand the metaphysics. Remember, this is also the angular.
The guys I'm referring to are the Templars, of course.
Geometry of Cliff High's research with what he's calling the high effect, where he found out that locking into place 36 degree rotation of a fourth magnet in a triangular pattern like this creates a conduit to the ether. So the guys at PNC Bank, the guys that purchased BBVA, there's PNC's bank's logo, purchased BBV Lambda. This is the other thing, guys. BBVA went through.
And there's your classic V steganography, guys. Of course, this is not new to people in my channel. This is a representation of a little graphic I made where the V on the bottom represents the grounded, material realm that we are mind controlled into, and the green, actually, the lambda, represents up with here with the heart chakra, and to balance that to reach God. This is what our challenge here is on Earth, and so this is just basically a little tool that I developed for people to realize what is being communicated with the V steganography. It goes much deeper than that, of course, but it's a start. And again, watch those other videos that I'm making, the Patreon videos that I'm making public to everybody now, and catch up on a little of this representation. But for our purposes, there you go. More of those matchies, just like the Templar addresses at PNC Park, the very logo of PNC, and then the V steganography.
A branding transition just this year. I know because I live in Arizona, and they're big down here. They're big in the Southwest. I see these guys on a lot of different corners. They're just as big as like Chase or Bank of America. I see just as many of these. And at some point during the spring, I saw the signs change over to this, from this BBVA to this BBVA. The V and the lambda clearly prepping for something. I mean, prepping for what? I would now argue this event where PNC buys them out or merges them together. BBVA Compass is what they were called before. Remember, the compass is the tool of the navigator. I think they were both Templar controlled banks to begin with, but I think they consolidated to make a power move. And you guys, I'll link the description for, you know, PNC Bank's history. It's actually pretty interesting. I was reading through that, and where BlackRock was associated with it in somewhere too, which was interesting because here it was. BlackRock acquired SSRM Holdings, the holding company of State Street Research Management Company, from MetLife. This transaction expanded the scale and scope of BlackRock's mutual fund products and distribution capabilities, as well as strengthened them as a global leader in fixed income assets. BlackRock, guys. BlackRock's big in our dealings today with the the GameStop ritual. So they're talking, and this is what I currently need to go back and look at, because that's a real interesting move to be in with BlackRock. But the point that we're going to stick with is that they're buying BBVA, and the preparation with the V steganography and the balance of it too, by the way. Also, side note, Death Stranding. Anybody that's watching me play Death Stranding, remember, BB. You've got the BB attached to yourself. What does that signify? It's a hint, right? I'm gonna break down the rest of that game when I'm done playing it. I haven't been streaming. I've just been blown through it just so I can get it done. And so if you guys have been wondering where I'm at with that game, I'm just playing it by myself. But this is where it gets really even crazier, guys. Watch this. When you go and you take a look at what BBVA's headquarters is, this is the shape of their headquarters. This is where it gets really crazy, guys. Remember Ellipse Park, the egg, the ritual to inseminate the egg from the Washington Monument? 3 hours worth of decode that you can watch on this. This is where it gets into the banking reset. It is an arch. Ellipse Park is an egg. BBVA's headquarters is an egg or an arch. Remember the Keystone from Philadelphia? I'm about to repeat myself here, of course, in the video. I'll just let it play. It is the perfect shape for all of the rituals that we're talking about because of the shape of Ellipse Park, right? And the phallus penetrating into it. The phallus shadow of the Washington Monument penetrating the ellipse up here at that point in the year. Here's Ellipse Park up here. What happens on the solstice of this year is this shadow becomes very long and it penetrates just barely right at this point on Ellipse Park. Again, Ellipse Park, White House is right across the street in the lawn. Ellipse Park has an impenetrable fence around it to protect this ritual this year. Hey, K-Dax, good to have you on the stream, man. Thanks for stopping by. So you're starting to see the connections with these rituals. I've got a question by Sarah Olofsson. What do they achieve by having both V and lambda there then? It's actually simply there to show you to balance. It's to actually find the Merkaba. Remember the shape of the Merkaba is two triangles interlocked in on one another. They're actually tetrahedrons if you're going to talk about the actual 3D sacred geometrical shape. But it's the shape of the earth. And to resonate with the earth, to heal the earth, it's the Hermetic science mystery. The two snakes, the twin snakes of Hermes up the Kundalini. Of course, show this to you again. The twin snakes over on the left there on the chakra. And the twin snakes represent rather the Kundalini energy, and they don't represent something evil like, you know, the biblical text would portend. You effectively have the eagle faction, which are like Nazis, and the serpent faction, which are also white-haired people, or white and red / blonde-haired people, just like the Nazis, but of a different faction. That's what we're talking about with the Templars. So it would seem that both are engaged in a reset ritual of sorts. And what we're about to find out
is how that unfolds. And that's just what, again, the GameStop stuff is leading up to. This is kind of just a preamble of where we've come. So for you YouTubers that are seeing this stuff for the first time, you have some context to what we talk about today. This video would be a lot shorter if we didn't go through all of this stuff. But Luke Hanlon, good day to you too. Another person from Australia. Good having you. But anyway, the steganography is a glyph, Sarah. It just simply points to the senses, the overwhelming the senses. We have 5 senses. So with the V overlaid in any sort of occult way as we see it, and we interpret it as mind control, as overcoming the senses, because spirituality is overcoming what's beyond the senses, perceiving what's beyond what you can touch, feel, smell, taste, see. Anyway, I'll continue on. You missed the shout out earlier where I shouted you out, but I'll shout you out again now that you're on the stream. So this is essentially what they're protecting. And of course, BBVA, the bank acquired by PNC, Bitcoin Orange with the Augustinian Trinity, which of course Bitcoin is a metaphysical concept. So this may have as well be a glyph for sound money. Don't know what the bank structure is going to be or going to convey. But now that they're merged with these guys and that they have this arch ritual in the Keystone State in Pennsylvania, take the keystone out of the arch, remove BBVA and take the keystone out of the arch falls. So this still happened. Whether you look at it this way or not, this is exactly what happened. The system is coming apart and the keystone got taken out back then 2 months ago. Everything is now we're going to see how long it takes for that arch to collapse. And just as it turns out, the voting fraud leads into more fraud with the banks. And that keystone still meant the same thing that we were interpreting. It just manifested on a different timeline in a little bit of a different way. So it's very interesting. This is where we find ourselves. So that is the context that I give everybody. That's the context. We're going to go in and we're going to get into, of course, Catherine Austin Fitz's work here, the state of our currencies. This is all too prescient of an image right here. The tail of the coin, as I've pointed out, which is getting a redesign anyway, melting away. The gold bullion coin here. But before we get into that, we have to set the stage a little bit further. And you're welcome, Sarah, thanks for the question itself. I want everybody to also be aware that I made a video. I'm going to do these blockchain 101 series presentations, posted this a few weeks back and went over the concept of value in this article of, have you ever tried to sell a diamond, and the diamond invention. We went over the concept because, quite frankly, this is something that, well, we have, as I got the screen turned on to it, that we have lost my train of thought here, guys. Sorry. That we've had to set a stage with, because ultimately what this portends for the markets right now is that value has also been invented. Okay. This is kind of where we're setting the stage of where you need to wrap your minds around in terms of what value is. And so you can set the stage for what to put your wealth in the future. And this is really what is being exposed with these latest banking these banking GameStop rituals. Sorry about that. Had a call coming in. Got to mute that thing. Anyway, so this is an article that I recommend everybody go back and read, or watch the video there on YouTube. And then this economic and monetary outlook for 2021, written right before the new year, is something I wanted to start out with, right? And this is before any of the GameStop happened, to show how on shaky ground we already were coming into this year. Events in 2021 will be the consequence of a developing hyperinflation of the dollar. Foreign holders of dollars and dollar assets, currently totaling $27.7 trillion, are sure to increase the pace of reducing their exposure. This is a primal threat to the Fed's policy of using quantitative easing, which is just money printing. That's all that is money printing, to continually inflate assets in the name of promoting a wealth effect and continuing to finance a rapidly increasing federal government deficit by suppressing interest rates. Okay. Publicly, the trigger for the Fed's inflationary magnanimity was the COVID-19 virus and the lockdowns it triggered in Europe, and then to a developing extent in America. But reflecting on events such as the repo crisis the previous September, which we covered here on this channel, of course, when the banking system ran out of the balance sheet capacity and the economic consequences of an equity bear market loomed, one wonders. The COVID crisis provided cover for an unprecedented monetary expansion, and that was required to save the economy from the maelstrom of bank credit contraction. It worked like a charm, as chart 1 showed. So this is what they were able to do over the course of the collapse. Where's chart 1? That's not chart 1. Oh yes, this was chart 1. Turning point was the 23rd of March. Boom. Coronavirus hits right here. And then they were able to loft it all back up using this money printing. Okay. We're going to get into the money printing later. But you can basically just know that the money printing is going to be a huge part of what we're going to get into today. And I will share with you why. I'm going to have a couple other presentations of some folks that we pull up. So I'll get back in. Okay, everything turned on the Fed's March announcements. And you get back down to this point where it's the section titled "Inflation Money is the Fed's money management tool." Okay, this is how the Fed was able to keep things lofted this year. One thing must be clearly stated, and that is the most important tool at the Fed's disposal is economically destructive: inflation of the money supply. The more it inflates, the more wealth is transferred from the productive economy of the government, or to the government. The more the Fed successfully encourages commercial banks to expand bank credit, the more wealth is transferred from the wider economy to themselves and their favored customers. The more money is diluted by increasing its quantity, the more wealth is transferred from savers to borrowers. Yet, those who make monetary policies have convinced themselves that monetary inflation is a force for good. It's because Keynesianism, it's the only way out. Keynesianism provides too many safety nets. And then when somebody snips those safety nets, it's a hard fall. But now that is on course for an uncontrollable acceleration, monetary inflation will be the underlying destructive force exposed in 2021. So there you have it. This is an article I'm going to reference as well. But I think it's wise for you guys to have this as a reference point because it's a great contextual piece that has a lot more to say about the money inflation other than what we've read. But this is what gets us into the situation we're in, guys. Here's the setup. Okay, we have a ritual component. We have a jubilee year, right? This is the occult piece of this that we already had to walk through. We're at a prime time and transition of history. Of course, we've talked so many times on this channel too with the videos I'm unlocking for everybody as of today. Please go back and watch this stuff. There's a lot based on astronomy and the rituals that we are facing because of said astronomical alignments occurring. And this had a lot to do with the reset ritual coming out in the first place. Okay, again, go back. That all of the information you could possibly want to know about that is also on this video here. Excuse me, this one. The one I've referenced. This one and this one are the ones I keep referencing tonight for everybody to kind of keep an eye on. But you get the gist, right? So anyway, the setup is that, of course, we have the ritual component. We have the star alignment component. We have the motive. We have sorcerers against Templars, basically. But then the sun is the wild card. We're going at this grand solar minimum, forced the hand of a reset situation that was acted upon too soon. And all of a sudden we have catastrophe. We have money printing that is not been able to hide in the wake of some certain tactics that people are using because they're fed up with their government forces and all the printed money that they're giving is going straight into their accounts for speculating on this GameStop stuff, right? So that's the setup that we all know. Okay. Now, I got a brilliant article that hit the other day relating the Wall Street bet stuff with the founder of Wall Street Bets to discuss what the group's motives are. And this is an interesting piece because who is the leader of this movement? What are his motives? Like, this is what we're always trying to find out with the occult is, do they belong to like a Jesuit type faction? Do they belong to a Templar type faction? Are they essentially eagles or serpents? We get more complex than that, but you know, it's the nature of the beast in terms of decoding this ritual too. Luke Hanlon said nearly 1,000 subs. Yeah, over on YouTube, I'm almost at 1,000 finally, where I can actually communicate with you guys a little bit better and send out community notes and things like that. They gate all that stuff behind 1,000 subs, but we'll get there. Anyway, back to this article. This is going to be a little bit more of our setup here. I lost all of my highlights. I highlighted this earlier, but anyway, there have been some. Basically, you guys understand what's going on with GameStop, with the GameStop the GameStop short squeeze, right? Wall Street Bets, the community last week was on Twitter, on Telegram, on Reddit, coordinating little attacks in the form of buys on their brokerage platforms and exchange platforms like Robinhood. Crashed all the short sellers out of the market, cost them billions of dollars. These were insurance policies held by gigantic hedge funds. You know the rest. So the setup here is they're talking about you have a group of individuals who've managed to force their way into a seat on the most exclusive poker table. Previously, it was invite only, Rogozinski said. They're doing something pretty crazy. Remember, Rogozinski, supposedly this Wall Street Bets guy. There have been some immediate consequences. Buoyed by their GameStop success, Wall Street Bets has also already turned its attention to several other stocks, piling into AMC, the movie theater company, and BlackBerry, catapulting those shares as well. The Reddit-based sieges have been the week's predominant financial news story. Everyone seems to be rapaciously following it. Even the White House, which said on Wednesday that the administration and Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, I still can't believe Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, we're monitoring the situation. Although, you know, Steve Mnuchin was really no better either. So, I mean, what are you going to do? Robinhood, a popular broker among young investors, decided it would on Thursday limit its customers to the stocks, right? So a lot of people are looking for a good buying opportunity, Rogzinski said, and several months ago, that wasn't possible until, of course, the money printing happened. So this is the setup. He's going into a little bit of the psychology behind why this is gambling, but why they don't really care, because the boomers are really the ones that are at risk. We've talked about in the past. So some other things to note, right? We've got, as of today, this was today, GME in the silver short positions. This is the current situation where they were on their high. Once the buying began to go, before the limits of the buys, rather, is what I'm trying to say, were taken off. This was a situation where people were piling into SLV instead over the weekend to front load it. But it's interesting, to say the least, that even after the drops, an interesting share amount here for AMZ too, by the way, 1,250, right? 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. I'm going to go back to Zero Hedge's main page here to see if anything's developed ever since then. I'm sorry for my dog here. Just a sec. Here's our Wizard of Oz meme here on Zero Hedge. Dave Portnoy is talking about loses 700K after selling the meme stocks. So even he's selling these things now. So essentially what you've had happen, guys, as I'm going through live on the articles, is that GameStop is now crashing. They pushed all of these short positions out. However, They pushed all these short positions out. However, whatever was been able to wrangle over the weekend, they were able to get the power back. But the big thing that the people have now is an understanding of the manipulation. This they did not have before any of this stuff transpired. So either way, whether or not these particular stocks are going to be the weapons, what are going to be the next ones? And as we already stated, silver already became that next step, right? But it kind of petered out over the course of the weekend. Got a lot of people getting into the volume, but they were able to suppress the price with the short contracts they had. But a very interesting thing happened, of course. They also had didn't know he had a doggo. Had Eric said didn't know Ben had a doggo. Oh yeah. I do. His name's Gordo. What am I trying to say here? So the silver. So people are piling into silver. Let me shake this off, right? I got sidetracked for a second because the dog came in. It really messed me up. What happened was a bunch of people had a demand to go buy the physical silver over the weekend. And so we still have a situation where we have a $25 silver price, but we have physical silver almost at $50 because there's so much physical silver being sold. So this has got to give somewhere along the way, and this is where securities fraud becomes the most apparent, because as we're going to find, it's the withdrawal into the actual physical that we care the most about. And so when we start to see that the biggest risk, even to the Wall Street bets guys, something akin to what we're going to go into here, we start to get a better picture about the actions you guys might want to consider taking for yourselves, and also where we're going to get into the meat of what our SEC component of the presentation is today, and what you need to know in the next 2 weeks or so. Okay, because here's the deal: this is a cool tactic of this Wall Street bets stuff that we are attacking the banks with. But my goal is also to not have you guys out there becoming the useful idiots that this article gets into, right? Okay. This article essentially goes into a scenario where a lot of people are going to pile into a stock, namely GME, GameStop, or silver at this point in time, right? A silver contract, and pump up the price. And the risk to those people are that seasoned traders that are not themselves are actually going to know when to exit with big gains, which has actually happened now. We've actually been able to prove that this happened over the last 2 days in terms of the SLV contracts. Now, these guys are always going to probably join in on the memes too and say, hey, everybody should do this. This is a social justice cause, and I'm in this with you guys too. But no, they're just in it for the money. You cannot guarantee that you're going to get everybody in on this buying effort that's just going to hold on to these stocks. And that's, again, the caveat emptor that you go into here as well. But even more so, it's the silver that's the most interesting component to the caveat emptor. If you have silver, which is over here, we've got our not our coin market cap, but visualcapitalist.com site, which is showing the market cap of all things in the world. You have silver right here. Silver is the market cap, is 43.9 billion. The entire value of above ground silver is $43.9 billion. Now, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of times more contracts in silver. But this is how far silver is suppressed, because when you go down to the broad money supply, which has now been doubled over the last year, this has now been doubled, and it's non-physical money. And just because of COVID-19, you start to see the imbalance of the situation where silver is supposed to represent sound money. There's something going on. There's something not right with the equation when you start looking at visually look at the imbalance. You then go, you've got global debt in all of these boxes, which each represent $100 billion, by the way. Each one of these boxes represents $100 billion. So the global money supply, 35 trillion for narrow money, broad money is 95 trillion. And physical represents only 7% of that entire, basically 150 trillion amount. But you come down to below the wealth, you find derivatives. Derivatives are what these silver contracts, what these GameStop contracts are, what they represent. Now, there are quadrillions of dollars worth of derivatives out there, and then some. This doesn't even begin to get into the situation that we face with derivatives fraud. But this is ultimately what's being exposed in all of this, guys. And what's the most important thing to keep in mind is that we're in this for the long haul to take on the derivatives market. If you're in this GameStop meme, right? I'm not participating in it, but I do understand that, of course, these derivatives, while not all the way having to do with the silver misvaluation, they do have something to do with this. So if you take all of the above ground, quote unquote, value of silver and you compare it with, let's just say in the derivatives, guys, let's just say this is going to be generous. There are way more silver contracts than this out there, but let's just say this equals that. Okay. This is why you see the divergence of physical dollars to paper dollars, where you see the spot price, as they say, that's the paper price at a price of $25, and why you see the physical approaching 50. The problem here is when you get too many people loaded into that paper, it's a game of musical chairs. Hey, Kara K, great to see you. I'm glad you were able to join in the stream and check it out. But you have too many people that can claim this. So you're going to get a lot of people that are able to suppress the price of paper silver. But when that silver supply, the actual silver supply, starts to dwindle further and further, we are going to start to see that unhinge. We're going to see Mike Maloney talk about that here in a second too. And Kara says, wouldn't it be convenient to blame the dollar crash on the plebes? Yeah. Yeah, we're going to see how that works. Doug619 says JP Morgan owns 600 millions of ounces of silver valued at 16 plus billion. Actually, Doug, last I checked, it's over a billion. It's over a billion ounces, and everybody's got insurance policies against that. So you're looking at BlackRock. You're looking at, of course, there's your BlackRock again, but you're looking at Citi. You're looking at HSBC. And all these companies that engage in the silver derivatives market, they are all doing digital withdrawals and deposits based off of JP Morgan's $1 billion physical ledger. And they do have $1 billion, or excuse me, 1 billion ounces of silver. And I hate to say it, but JP Morgan's pretty well insulated because of that. Sarah Lofson says, since value is invented, it should be easy to just put everything on zero and just cancel all debt. No. Maybe, but not easy, but impossible. Well, here's funny you say that, Sarah. Here's where my point is. Eventually, if this happens, if algorithms get to the point where reality loses any semblance in our market making ability to determine it, we could see the physical price of silver go to $1,000. And who knows, they might suppress the paper price to $10. Which one do you trust then, right? This would be a really irreconcilable thing for the computers that are trading the algorithms to try and fix. And the scenario that may end up happening, Sarah, is they just break down. And so anything digitally represented, of course, a debt may get wiped because you can't go validate it anymore. It's gone out of record because everything breaks. But then again, anything asset-wise that's on Ledger 2 gets taken away. So in that scenario, anybody who's holding on to the actual physical silver, physical cars, physical art, physical wine, even, this is why people store their wealth in these things. And crypto, of course, the ultimate in your value storage. Then you have then you have a situation where that's the only place the value is. And of course, silver bullion coins equal $1 a piece. Do we get massive inflation followed by massive immediate deflation? This is the thing that we have to keep in mind if the computers continue to fight with each other. So your supposition is actually right where I was going with this. And so that could be something to keep poking at for these people. The silver contracts seem to be a place that they can get damaged. That is the banking system. So the way you do this is you hedge by buying your long position, your physical silver at your local coin shop and such, and then see if they can actually cover the shorts, I suppose, on a massive Wall Street bets type situation. It's just there are so many silver contracts, it might be tough to do. But I digress. That's the situation we face. So anyhow, moving on from the silver piece, right? I want to get in to the SEC component itself and start to help people to understand the fraud that exists within our own structure. Again, I've got some experience in the industry. Of course, I worked for a company here, Token IQ, for some time where we worked on the compliance aspect of market making, where in order to tokenize assets onto a blockchain, you first need distributed ledger technology that can validate its compliance and its governance for the structure of the jurisdiction that it belongs to, whether it's the United States or some other country. It's a wonderful piece of technology. Gave me a lot of the knowledge that I have now that built along off of some other stuff that, of course, got me into the field in the first place. But the first thing we need to understand is that the Securities and Exchange Commission is freaking out about some of this stuff right now. They're absolutely freaking out. And it's important to look into because these are securities that are trading in GameStop and silver and SLV. And so first and foremost, I'll read you kind of what the commissioner of the SEC, the new commissioner of the SEC, stated the other day, Allison Herron. The commission is closely monitoring and evaluating the extreme price volatility of certain stocks trading prices over the last several days. Our core market infrastructure has proven resilient under the weight of this week's extraordinary trading volumes. Nevertheless, extreme stock price volatility has the potential to expose investors to rapid and severe losses and undermine market confidence. Oh, we wouldn't want that. We wouldn't want that. As always, the commission will work to protect investors to maintain fair, orderly, and efficient markets. Of course, this is their credo. The SEC is all about maintaining these fair, orderly, and efficient markets, and to facilitate capital formation. The commission is working closely with our regulatory partners, both across the government and FINRA, and other self-regulatory organizations, including the stock exchanges, to ensure that regulated entities uphold their obligations to protect investors and to identify and pursue potential wrongdoing. The commission will closely review actions taken by regulated entities that may disadvantage investors or otherwise unduly inhibit their ability to trade certain securities, which they didn't really do anything of in the last week. They just sat on their thumbs. They did not do any of this. So they're going to keep looking into it. Thanks, SEC. In addition, we will act to protect retail investors when the facts demonstrate abusive or manipulative trading activity that is prohibited by federal securities laws. Market participants should be careful to avoid such activity. Likewise, issuers must ensure compliance with the federal securities laws for any contemplated offers or sales of their own securities. And again, that's what this technology does, guys. It's a distributed ledger component that ensures can plug into a blockchain environment if you'd like it to, and that the issuers maintain all of the disbursement rights over this stuff. We don't have anything like this, so we just have committees throwing darts at walls. And that is, of course, if we had a technology like Token IQ already instituted, we wouldn't have these unfair markets in the first place, and we wouldn't have the ability to manipulate it one way or the other. This is how we know it's a manipulated market. Even though the SEC just as I state here, is their goal to maintain fair, orderly, and efficient markets and to facilitate capital formation. That is what they do. They are an independent federal government regulatory agency responsible for protecting investors and maintaining fair and orderly functioning security markets. So one of their credos is to maintain the functioning security markets. Right there in the credo, it kind of suggests also that they can't let this thing fail. So they have to intervene every once in a while. And because the Glass-Steagall Act that we were talking about earlier got taken away by Bill Clinton in 1999, they are left at a disadvantage when trying to fix hemorrhaging markets these days. States even here on Investopedia, generally issues of securities offered in interstate commerce through the mail or on the internet must be registered with the SEC before they can be sold to investors. Financial service firms such as broker-dealers, advisory firms, asset managers, as well as the professional representatives must also register with the SEC to conduct business. An example, they would be responsible for approving any formal Bitcoin exchange, right? So this also tells you that those entities like Robinhood and like TD Ameritrade and like what were some of the other ones? I'm drawing a blank, guys. E-Trade was the other one. They stopped your ability to withdraw funds. And this is intervention. So the Securities Exchange Commission would say that they're there to protect investors, but they also have to maintain fair and orderly securities markets, maybe above all else. Which one do they care more about, right? That's kind of where rubber meets the road on this stuff, is which one they care more about. But we've been talking about this over on my Discord channel. I mean, where are we talking about? Over in the cryptos and metals investing section, we were following the story. Here it was on TD Ameritrade and Robinhood both, of course. I think Robinhood, I think that was a find that I was showing earlier on in this whole trading fiasco. Yeah, coin withdrawals. Let's see if I can zoom in on this a little bit. It says here, I got this app notification from Robinhood. This time we don't support coin withdrawals, though we plan to do so in the future. And this is regarding crypto, actually. This is regarding crypto. And so Robinhood's posting this, which means you can go buy crypto on there, but you don't actually own any crypto because you can't withdraw it off of the exchange. You can only convert it to cash. So you essentially just own cash. And then going back down to here, of course, thanks to Womp Womp for a lot of this stuff, the TD Ameritrade app in response to rapidly evolving COVID-19 situation. The precious metals digital store is currently unavailable. Please check back again later. So not only is TD Ameritrade blocking certain stocks from being purchased now, you cannot any longer get any physical metals. APMEX stopped over the weekend. This is the stuff we were talking about. And spot price was going through the roof to $40. 27 million ounces of physical silver sold in one day, instead where they usually sell 1 million in a whole weekend. That's what JM Bullion said, one of the biggest bullion banks. Okay. So there's this, we've been following this stuff over on the Discord channel. The Discord channel, by the way, you can kind of lurk for free. I changed the settings to where you can come in there and lurk, but you can't message. You can't message in there without becoming a patron member. But you can do that, just so you know, if you wanted to join our chat and become part of the community over there where we talk about more of the V-Cipher stuff. Again, it's the $5 patron level. It'll get you automatic access to Discord channel where you can chat with everybody in there. So anyway, this is kind of where we're at, guys. It's the SEC would portend to protect you, but with all the things that has to approve, TD Ameritrade, Robinhood, E-Trade, you have to put all of these exchanges onto a live platform by approving them as the SEC. Did you not look into if they had
what they said they were going to have to trade? Was there no auditing process before they're allowed to launch as an exchange that says they have something? This is actually where I want you guys to pay attention a little bit at this point in the presentation, because we've talked about some of this stuff. This is a really funny website that the SEC did that's very good to drive people away from engaging in ICOs unnecessarily. So they do have a sense of humor there at the SEC, and they do back up and affirm that engaging in casino gambling with ICO tokens and things like that is dangerous. And how do you tell between what's real and what's not? Well, if anything it's the Howey test. It's the SEC's Howey test of securities. And if something looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, sounds like and tastes like a duck, is that what it was? Probably is a duck. That's what this site is for. It's actually for you being able to compare and contrast on certain scam coins to see whether or not it looks as if it could be. Sharing you discounts, the silver level. Okay. So the SEC is doing some stuff out there as it relates to maintaining fair and orderly markets, but it's just a little bit antiquated. That's why I was in that Token IQ effort, and why it's still such a great product, because it can fix all these things that are going on right now. So I've got a couple people saying some stuff here in the chat. So Surreptitious, you say, "Yo, man, been looking forward to your presentation on all this." Okay, good. It started off slow, dude, because of the sound sync issues. You're still experiencing them now. Obviously, I didn't get the voice synced up with the video like I wanted to, but anyway, we're doing it. So Kara K says, "Nothing has been fair for a long time. My husband works with a small publicity, traded in penny stocks." Yeah. There's the try bar again. So anyway, Howey coins, SEC, they're portending to be your protectors. Well, this is where I have to credit Womp Womp again for bringing this to my attention, because I was going to get into this topic of the other dark organizations out there that are really the ones that are lofting up this house of cards. The SEC is the one that people know as the regulatory body, and is generally in public, right? And so they have to put on public face. They have a PR team. They have to do damage control with a lot of what's going on. And everything is fine. Everything is fine. Everything is fine is essentially what they're saying. We stopped it. We stopped the bleeding. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Because something is not continuing to police this, it's just a matter of time of when the dam breaks again. And this is a great article over on Activist Post that I'll go back to again. Thanks, Womp Womp, where it just asks right out of the gate. This was just posted yesterday. Have you ever heard of the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, or the DTCC for short? What about CD and Company? I wonder if anybody on the stream actually has. If anybody actually has heard of either of those, I'm impressed. I have mentioned DTCC before. In fact, I will show you where you can go look at one of my videos based on the DTCC over on YouTube. Right here, Road to Ruta, new proof, DTCC right here, Tesla Tech, the Hurricane Sandy paper contracts destruction. So this has to do with some of the other topics I had covered in my past, the EarthGrid Parasite Network. In fact, the EarthGrid Parasite Network is a really cool topic because it factors in with the V-steganography guys in a really, really cool way. Just like the EarthGrid being controlled by sorcerers, right? This is something that you can, just as a brief segue, you can expand on these topics too, over on the videos that I'm going to be letting everybody have access to for free. Again, all Patreon videos up to this point, I'm making available publicly. Everything from here on in, of course, you'll have to be a Patreon member again to access over on Brighteon. But here they are. Right here, if you start with this video right here, I've now made it visible on BitChute, of course, EarthGrid Network, Alchemical Agenda, The Boring Company, Alchemic Ritual, Human Philosopher's Stone, Channeling of Christ to dispel the alchemy of Wetico,
and Crypto Cosmology, CERN Circles, and The Alchemy Underground. This is a 4-part series that's like 10 hours worth of videos. But you will see what I mean at the end of that in terms of some of how they control the weather and such, and how that also factors in to the DTCC rituals. That is a segue for a different day, but the DTCC, as you can see, is in deep with the Tesla tech memes. They are in deep with the transition to a new society and whatnot. So where was I? I got to get back to, of course, the article. So have you ever heard of these people, right? If these names are foreign to you, then you don't really understand how the core of our financial system works. A lot of people are blaming Robinhood CEO Vlad Tenev and the heads of other major trading platforms for the stock trading restrictions that we witnessed last week, of course, with the GameStop fiasco. But it was actually the DTCC, the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, that, of course, they're the ones that handle the paper contracts. They're the ones that have the reconciliation process that goes through them. It suddenly jacked up deposit requirements tenfold. So now insurance requirements on your deposits have gone up in an order of magnitude just because of the Wall Street bet stuff. Robinhood and other trading platforms were put in a vice-like grip, and they had no choice but to act. Someone needs to investigate how these decisions were made at the DTCC. And if laws were broken, those that were responsible for those decisions need to go to prison. That's what has to happen. That's right. The SEC needs to hold these guys to the fire, ultimately. If they don't, then it's just going to be apparent that we do have manipulated markets and that it's allowed to happen and that people are complicit. And this will be out in the open too very soon. If it isn't apparent already for folks that this is the case. So I will continue. Of course, the small fish are not supposed to beat up the big fish like they did last week, and the billionaires at the big hedge funds undoubtedly reached out their potential powerful friends to help. This is definitely what happened. So why is this important? Well, because guys, the reason why this stuff can exist in the first place is because of these two corporations, is what I'm saying. They're the evil empire, the DTCC and the seeding company. Thanks, Womp Womp, again for surfacing that. Let me show you guys what I had already outlined and intended to show you in form of a video by Caitlin Long that I think I may have shared before with patrons, but I don't know. This actually shows the structure of the other company, seeding company, that you guys just learned a little bit about. DTCC, you learned, right? They're the clearinghouse corporation that reconciles all the securities transactions, everything that goes through them for rehypothecation, for basically making shares on top of shares on top of shares that aren't backed by physical. So you can thank the DTCC in a manner of speaking for the situation that we have here for the derivatives crisis and relative to the weensy tiny amount of physical silver value that we have. Again, this is not the amount of physical silver, it's physical silver value that they're representing there. And so as the price of physical silver goes up, that box gets bigger. And silver is going to have a lot of boxes by the time it's running. So anyway, that is the setup for Caitlin Long. Let's see. And Caitlin Long, of course, guys, she's one of the more famous Bitcoiners because her actions allowed for Bitcoin to be legalized in Wyoming more than any other state. Sonic Alchemy says, if you could link the Caitlin Long video in Discord after, if you can, need for normies. Yeah, I will absolutely. I'll link this video in Discord afterward. But listen to what she says, guys. This is she's a harbinger of things to come, and she is a smart individual. She's a serious individual, and I love her to death. I've shaken her hand twice. Never got a chance to have a conversation with her, but 2018 is when she is giving this presentation in San Francisco, and when she pulls up the role of seeding company. Let's have a listen.
And so it does suggest that, unfortunately, this is not going to end well. This doesn't help tell us when it's going to end, but it helps, I think, explain why we didn't see the crash and the end of the dollar yet. Let me turn now to the second problem, which is issues in Wall Street's ledger systems that are prone to inaccuracies. And it's related to the earlier problem. I'll connect them in a moment. But the way securities used to work was very simple. Issuers issued this stock certificates in paper form to the investor. And what I say by investor there is either you individually or through your agent, like a pension fund or a mutual fund
or like a Robinhood. This is essentially what the issuer is in the situation of GameStop is the issuer of the stock. The investor is the Robinhood user. And in the old days, you used to be able to not have this out of control digital nightmare where there's way more shares on hand than can be reconciled, because the issuer would never not give a physical paper certificate that was stamped to the investor along with it. These were called bearer bonds. Bearer bonds are now out of style, and it was Token IQ's technology that was going to bring this basic representation into a digital world and lock it into place and protect it against things like fire and, loss or theft because of the recoverability aspect of the token market making. Okay. This is what's missing now in the securities industry because it's now more complex. It's been since the 50s since we did it this way. This is how we do it now.
Insurance company. But you always owned the stock certificate in paper form. That's how it used to work. Since 1994, we've got this very convoluted procedure here.
Do you guys notice right here? CD and Company. You have the issuer, GameStop. Every single time they have to launch their securities into the market, CD and Company is the first stop. They gain access and ownership to the title of that security. So check it out. This is how Caitlin Long describes it. This is nuts.
Where you see that the issuer issues securities to a company called CD & Co., which is owned by the Depository Trust Corporation, and then
owned by the DTCC. You see how they're connected and why not a lot of people know about these guys? They are the top of the market rigging food chain.
The custodians hold the securities on your behalf. So there are a minimum of 3, sometimes 5 or 6 layers between you and the issuer. When I first figured this out, it was amazing. I was working in capital markets and looking at a bond prospectus, and in the prospectus is language that says that the issuer of the bond has no obligation to pay interest and principal to the investor.
Whoa! Did you guys hear that? The holder of a security in this structure is not obligated to its ownership or the profits that it gets them. Because why? Because CD and Company owns those. It's by their permission that you are allowed to engage in profit taking. That's what she just said. Oh, it's legally there in the documents of the regulations of the market making that exists per them, that outlines what this DTCC does and can do in the markets. They do not owe you the money of your ownership is what it boils down to. That's nuts. It should make everybody's hair stand on the back of their head. Even the guys that are engaging, of course, in the Wall Street bet stuff because of that.
Think about that. That is expressly in the bond prospectus. You are buying a bond and you are not getting an obligation to pay interest and principal from the issuer. What's happening is the issuer is paying CD & Co., who has an obligation to pay the custodian, who has an obligation to pay you. These layers of intermediaries create unnecessary counterparty risk, operational risk, and the risk that the system gets out of sync.
And this is what just happened, guys. The system got out of sync. Like I'm saying, it's now out of sync is what I would argue because of what's happening with the silver prices.
Because each one of those layers is reconciling against each other. And until more like 10 years ago, all of these companies batch processed their transactions overnight. That's part of the reason why it took 3 days. Now it's 2 days to settle securities transactions, because it's got to go through layers of intermediaries, each one of them needing a day.
What she just described, guys, is escrow. The intermediaries that are there in the process is what escrow is. Why does it take
30 days to clear my house title. Well, because it gets taken by CD and company, and it gets shoved through a gigantic game of Plinko, just like as shown in this chart.
Overnight to process the transactions. And so you can see that this system inherently foments inaccuracies because they're not all going to be in sync at the same time. And it also,
which is what brought down the GME stock relative to the hedge funds, or the hedge funds relative to the GME stock. Excuse me, I misspoke.
creates settlement delays where it requires 2 days to settle securities transactions. However, the technology no longer requires that. We've long past moved the need to have this crazy system, but we're stuck with the legacy.
That's what she's talking about when, of course, token IQ, this type of technology. This is why we don't need to live in this world anymore, because technology exists that's better.
What are the problems? Some of you are probably skeptical and thinking, I trust my brokerage account. I trust my broker. I've never found a mistake. They're honest. Well, let me give you some examples. The first one was just about a year ago in litigation in Delaware, Dole Food. There was a class action lawsuit, and the details are not important, but here's what matters. There were 36.7 million shares of Dole Food outstanding, and in a class action lawsuit, there were 49.2 million claimants to the consideration in the class action lawsuit. Again, 49.2 million people had valid brokerage statements showing that they owned Dole Food shares, all of whom had valid brokerage statements. 49.2 million, but there were really only 36.7 million Dole Food shares outstanding.
Whoa, that's a disparity of 12 million shares. What happened? Well, what happened is what we're talking about right here. Dole Foods had sold more shares than they had outstanding, and everybody wanted to redeem them because they were in a lawsuit. So what do? What the heck? Just like GME, just like silver to a massive scale. This is a small scale, but it's a precedent case from 2016 where Dole Bananas didn't even know they were in this situation. They didn't even know. As a relatively honest company, you might be able to say, but why wouldn't they know? Because they didn't know that CD and Company and the DTCC did this with the securities. It's that friggin' under wraps that the companies themselves don't even really know what's being engaged. Sons of Single Mom says adding zero to the Dole dollar. Yeah, that's a good one, man. So anyway, adding zeros to the Dole dollar. Anyway, this is another example of the situation that we're in right now. So let her close this thing.
That's what Patrick Byrne will call the bezel when he talks in a moment. If that makes you not trust your brokerage statement, good, because I don't trust mine. All of those 49.2 million showed up on valid brokerage statements. And again, it's because of these layers of intermediaries that can get out of whack at any given moment in time. Procter & Gamble, you might have read there was a big proxy fight. It was all over the business newspapers at the end of last year. Well, in the first count in the proxy vote, it came out that Procter & Gamble's candidate won by 6.2 million votes. They did a second count, and it turned out that the challenger, Nelson Peltz, won by 42,780 votes. And then they did a third count, and it swung back. Procter & Gamble won by 498,312 votes. Let me go through that again. The first vote was plus 6.2 million. The second was minus 42,780. And the third was plus 498,312. If this doesn't give you any confidence in financial systems, good, because...
Guys, to break down what she's saying here, it's that as an audit, as a function of an audit, basically, of reconciling numbers of a simple voting structure, those numbers should be within very close tolerance of each other, very tight statistical significant, really tight confidence interval. Okay? They're all over the place. One's millions above, one's hundreds of thousands below, and hundreds of thousands above. This is madness. These markets are broken already, and they're passing back and forth these clearing transactions in batches. They tee them up and then reconcile them all at once. Who's reconciling them, right? It's all a charade. And this is the danger that anybody, even in the Wall Street bets and the GME stuff, is playing with. And that's what we're getting into here.
because a lot of these guys are also really soon, if not already, getting into crypto, and they don't know what they're getting into either. Okay. So that's ultimately the situation based on what Caitlin Long has shared with us we face. But back over to the situation with the Bitcoin guys, because now we have the situation, of course, where I already showed that you cannot withdraw your funds on Robinhood. Robinhood, you can trade Bitcoin, but you cannot withdraw your Bitcoin. Okay. This is also a function of TD Ameritrade now, where these exchanges are shutting down in terms of the crypto. Because why? Just like silver, they don't have the Bitcoin. So you are forced into a taxable event if you're a Robinhooder and you want to get your Bitcoin, because you have to convert it to cash when it was probably just cash already in the first place, just represented as Bitcoin on your digital screen there. And so you don't actually own those coins until you can withdraw them in your possession. This should tell you something with these guys very suspiciously tweeting all with their Bitcoin icons last week. Thanks again for Womp Womp for collecting all this stuff over in the Discord channel. Alexis Ohanian Sr., Tyler Winklevoss, Cameron Winklevoss, Elon Musk, Mr. Beast, and who else we got? Jack Dorsey. Okay. One of the things that you need to keep in mind here, guys, is that we just had PayPal be accepted into the Bitcoin realm too. You can use Bitcoin on PayPal, is what they're saying. This is a big announcement. Why is it important? Well, because Elon Musk created PayPal, and he's advocating for Bitcoin. Just like PayPal, Jack Dorsey also has an app, the Cash App. The Cash App. The Cash App is something that is, well, it's just like PayPal with an exchange functionality and even Square built into it, right? It's got the swipeable Square, and you can also buy Bitcoin with this platform too. So what do all these things have in common is what I'm saying. If we've got this game of musical chairs, we have all these people advocating for Bitcoin, but they represent platforms that would portend to sell you Bitcoin, but may not actually be able to allow you to withdraw your Bitcoin. You start to have to be really careful with where you put your trust in this new situation, guys. Where you buy your crypto from, essentially, right? Sonic Alchemy says, I mentioned this to you before. Oh, yeah, I was mentioning to you the dual bananas thing before. Yeah, I remember in that conversation. There you have it. Now you understand it deeper. But Bitcoin is the best thing for us. That's ultimately, guys, what I've shared in the past as well is it's the way out. But it's not the way out if you're not actually buying the currency. If you're buying a digital funny money representation of it, you're going to get had. This is a complex situation that we're coming into. And that's why the Templars constructed this ritual that we went over in the first place, in my eyes. Super Bowl 55, guys. Remember, Super Bowl 55. Watch this decode before the Super Bowl. And watch this decode before the Super Bowl. You'll get an understanding as to what we're headed into and why the reset rituals matter. They're to enlighten us about what this reset really is. Blockchain is truly a Templar construct, as I've also talked about on those Patreon videos. Bill Carson says our elites are traitorous scum. That's right. Kadak says our ABC media is suggesting that the Redditors may create a Black Swan event because of Silver Squeeze. That's kind of what we're getting at right here, Kadax, actually, is what is the Black Swan event? I think that's what I'm getting at here with warning you guys against putting your money into these platforms. Coinbase isn't the best either, but at least you can get crypto off of Coinbase. Kraken, you can at least get crypto off of Coinbase. Even Gemini, the Winklevoss guy, that's what's funny about this. Maybe the Winklevoss twins who own Gemini, the exchange, maybe that's what that tells you, is maybe Gemini might not be so good of an exchange to participate in either. It's getting down to the few, guys. I mean, there you have it. Be careful about Gemini. Be careful about Cash App and Square, and be careful about PayPal and Robinhood as vectors to your crypto. That's essentially what we're saying here. Because of this whole seeding company nightmare, you want to be able to guarantee that you can have access to it. Okay. So that is one of the bigger things at play here. And it's going to pit people against Bitcoin probably again, because they're going to be had. It's going to be worse than Mt. Gox, I think. Because you're going to get mainstream people buying into these apps, and then they're not going to be able to convert it. And it's just going to, if the markets collapse, it will go down to zeros. You know, not a good situation. So that's my warning to you. Caitlin Long said it best, of course, but want to get you guys into a mindset of where we're at and why this matters in terms of the broader money supply that we already got into. Remember, on the visual capitalist, we're talking about the money supply doubling this year. I'll show you a chart. This is a chart that actually shows the little bit of a rise in money supply going into March of this year. This is from, who is this? Coventry? Oh, Convoy. Convoy did this report. I'll link this in the description too. But as of July 2020, we had 40% inflation. And as Mike Maloney showed in his latest video the other day on the silver squeeze, we've now got 100% inflation by the end of 2020. Our money supply doubled. It doubled. So what this has to do with the situation at hand, of course, I'll let him describe on his couple of videos here, and then I'll render some commentary afterward. But of course, going into it, why this matters is because the stimulus that the government has printed has actually given the ammunition for this to happen in the first place. So we're in this little bit precarious circumstance. But here's Mike. Mike Maloney is a financial advisor who's got a webpage called Gold Silver, and he's got a YouTube channel. And he's actually, I'm going to let a couple of his videos play. One from November 11th, 2019, when the repo markets exploded. What we talked about here in this article, the Fed's money management tool over here at goldmoneyresearch.com. It's the economic and monetary outlook for 2021. This is what Mike Maloney basically recounts back to this point in time when the repo markets were exploding before 2020's coronavirus hit, and we had to increase all this money.
$500 billion to 2.7 trillion. And,
just since 2008, by the way, if you look, the little blip over here is the dot-com bust. Little bit right there. That's the money supply. That's the bump in the road that got us through the dot-com bust. It truly wasn't until the money printing of 2008. I'll show you the broader graph here. Right here, this was, boom, global financial crisis. This is that flat line. Here's the little blip for the dot-com crash. But here, I'll just hit play again, like I said.
Doing the quantitative tightening, and this is shrinking, but notice that it's at much lower levels now on the excess reserves than it was in 2012. But if we go back to base currency is much higher than in 2012. And notice that these steps here are level pretty much.
For each
when
step
you go
of QE.
over to excess reserves, these steps are very slanted. That's that currency leaking out into circulation. It's this brick colored line, the red line.
So here's another line. Here's one of these lines right here below here, guys, that I want to show everybody.
And taking excess reserves away from base currency.
So red money, this is actual money. This is circulating money. Okay. And this is why physical, even silver in a situation, if all this stuff collapses, this is the stuff that's at risk for all coming apart at the seams all at once.
This is all the stuff that in Caitlin Long's presentation about Seeding Company, these guys have under their management and creation, basically the DTCC. This is all, this part of the graph, this excess part above this red line, which is trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars, affects this total supply right here. Okay. Remember, physical is only 7% of the entire total. The rest of it comes unglued if the markets collapse. That's what we can anticipate. So what we're at risk of having happen here is and this is why the Wall Street Redditors can still keep picking away at this, is because if they do enough damage, this all can collapse on itself and basically resort back down to and gap down to the red line. And this is what would happen in a situation where markets came unplugged, and why having physical silver, which is actually now worth $1 on its face value, what is it really worth? Maybe $1, maybe value deflates somewhat all the way to the point where Federal Reserve notes aren't even money anymore. Then what is money? What's legally defined as money is an ounce of silver. Interesting times.
So going on to the next chart, this is total assets. Now, when the Federal Reserve acquires an asset, they do so by creating currency. They counterfeit $1 into existence, and then they buy something with it. And what's interesting here is that this is at $4.5 trillion, not 4.1. So there's $400 billion that isn't accounted for in base currency.
And we're going to begin again. So there we go. We are back from power outage in terms of my internet now. And this will be seamlessly spliced in, of course, post-production. But I am still in the middle of the presentation that we had begun a few hours back relating to the Templars and the BTC situation we find ourselves in. And we just got done talking about Seeding Company and Caitlin Long. So obviously the game of Plinko that exists here in the DTCC Seeding Company scenario that Caitlin Long pointed out culminates in what Mike Maloney is talking about on a broad money spectrum, where starting in 2008, quantitative easing and money printing comes into the picture. Start to draw it down in 2018, but right here at the end, COVID takes over, and we start to get a little bit more of the repo market crisis hit at this point in time. So Mike Maloney had just gotten done talking about this, and here is what that resulted in. This is what that blip was. All of a sudden, boom, 40% interest rate or 40% money supply added, 40% volume added to the money supply, printed into existence in 2020, right at the end of 2019 there. What Mike Maloney was getting our heads wrapped around in his presentation. Since then, we've also just learned that we've got 100% inflation right here. And this is where Mike Maloney started to talk about yesterday, because this report that Convoy did only covers through July, through the summer. And with all of the silver short squeezes about ready to happen with those physical contracts versus paper that we talked about earlier in the presentation, Mike Maloney here is going to describe to us what the situation beholds for us. And he's going to explain this chart a little bit.
And what is going on right now. This is the Fed's balance sheet as a percentage of GDP, the US economy. So what's the size of how much the Fed owns compared to the size of the economy in 1 year? All the goods and services bought and sold in the United States in a year. And what you see here is this goes back to the inception of the Federal Reserve. And we've got World War I, the Great Depression, World War II, the global financial crisis, which includes QE1, QE2, and QE3. Then we grew the economy faster than the debt grew. And so this shrank. and then the Batman Wu flu. If this is a true
Batman.
crisis, and if
You guys heard him say it. Just you heard him say it. Go watch my last video on Batman, but he said it too.
there are big
The year one
brokerage
thing.
houses, hedge funds, and so on that could be going under. If they're burning the midnight oil right now, if they're burning the midnight oil, it could be that the Federal Reserve is up, the Treasury is up, the Securities and Exchange, the Commodities and Futures Trading Commission, and they're all working on this problem right now. And then we find out on Monday that there have been bailouts, that mergers and acquisitions have been arranged. Somebody's taking over Citadel, for instance. So we'll see how this goes. But this is only going to increase in the future. Now, the way the Federal Reserve does this is they create currency. There's a certain amount of currency. They expand the currency supply by creating new currency, and they get it into circulation by buying something. The Fed's balance sheet is stuff they bought with counterfeited currency, and it equates to almost half of the US economy.
Which doubled this year. So again, guys, what do you suppose is going to happen when these silver contracts, the physical contracts, come apart? The actual Bitcoin that people hold in their own possession, on their own wallets, versus the derivatized Bitcoin that our friends over here that own the Cash App and the PayPal app, Elon Musk and Jack Dorsey. I'm referencing our community Discord channel again. Jack Dorsey, Winklevoss twins, remember, own Gemini Exchange. Elon Musk started PayPal. Jack Dorsey owns the Cash App and Square. So we have to be careful about who is lobbying to take advantage of this massive amount of money that's been printed into existence this year. Because your wealth that you think you have and that you think you're fighting against the system can be taken away. That's the caveat emptor that these Wall Street better guys need to pay attention to as they're going into the abyss of the situation. So anyway, that is the risk that's apparent. Remember, money supply, what's in existence, is real, but these are just notes. Silver, the overall market cap of silver in respect, remember, each one of these blocks is supposed to represent $100 billion. Silver is only half of the size of that one in its market cap. Physical silver is so undervalued, it's not even funny. I mean, you even go to gold and you just compare. So 1-to-1 above ground ratio with these two things. Think about it, guys. So I'll leave you with some food for thought with some graphics, right? Bitcoin is not sorcery. Okay. A lot of people are still at the end of this video probably scratching their heads and like, okay, well, what the heck about Bitcoin? Well, we can get into deeper to Bitcoin and what it portends for the future at some point. I've gone into it before. Just in my latest videos, I'm starting to go into crypto a little bit more, of course, just in general. You can find right here my last Blockchain 101 series, Intrinsic Value. We're starting to talk about this stuff a little bit, but also in the videos that I'm opening up publicly now, you can also learn a little bit about the bank takedown in the last Batman video before I started to post over on Patreon because YouTube was banning my stuff. Persisted through this video and then this video. So I basically made this video to talk about Bitcoin and sound money and what it has to do with the spells at large. Okay. And the Wizard of Oz that we mentioned earlier. That's another good primer video at this point that'll give you a leg up, especially if you haven't been in my Patreon community. Understand that Bitcoin is not sorcery. It is wizardry, though. And those are semantics that we could get into. That's my little joke, I guess. Wizardry versus sorcery. That's, the Jedi versus the Sith argument. Bitcoin is metaphysical. So like all jokes aside, like this is actually a pretty appropriate way to look at Bitcoin. Its value is intrinsic because of an algorithm that's Loctite. And I have described this over the course before. And it is going to offer us our way out, as I've also shown in this graphic. Okay. But it's not going to come without its challenges. We've talked about some of these. PayPal is not going to be something that you may want to engage in the crypto practices of. It has made it mainstream, which is good for you as a true Bitcoiner, right? But if you don't have it in your own possession, you don't own it. And this is the game at play. This is the BTC war that we're about to enter into. These head honcho guys that are heads of these exchanges, what happens when those collapse? The day the exchanges collapse will be the day of reckoning, and it will be the day that I've foretold for years, or since I was in the securities and fintech space. But this is us in the meantime, right? We actually take up what we know to be sound money. We get our currencies on the Coinbases and Krakens of the world. We immediately remove it into our own possession, and we can secure it. This is the way we fight back with this stuff. And this is just another representation of silver as well. Silver is also going to be the physical variety, is also going to serve the same cause. Dustin, I'm still on YouTube. Yes, I am. I've come back to do a little bit of these presentations these presentations based around blockchain and crypto. I'm going to be doing publicly for quite some time. And like I mentioned earlier in the video, I will be opening up my backlog of Patreon videos I've done up to this point over on BitChute. I'm just making them visible for you guys. They're not going to be posted to YouTube. But anyway, the battle that we can fight is with understanding these dynamics and not letting this volume war get the best of us. It's all part of this reset scenario, which was part of that Templar ritual. But ultimately, it is just a matter of time before this thing blows up. We don't know when. The day is probably very close. It probably is going to align with something like these Super Bowl rituals. Okay. But it is nigh. I mean, it's very apparent that just the trust in the system for not being something that's rigged is totally thrown out the window. So that's something we have to look out for. And all along the way, we have to keep our eyes on the prize. What's it for? It's the secrets. Why does the money matter? Because once we topple whatever the veneer is over the money system, the secrets come out. And that's what the research of the V-steganography has been all about, guys. I want to go here. I want to find out why the heck these guys are installed down there in the form of Leidos and SAIC. We're not going to have time to get into it today. But, you know, I have some stuff here that we were going to get into in Catherine Austin Fitts' space work. We'll have to save it for another video that all matches it up with the Leidos contracts and such down there. So this is of course where all the missing money is going off books, the FASB 56 riddle. It all leads here. And it matters to understand that we have to keep the BTC, the actual BTC, in our own possession, because otherwise, if you don't, you're not going to be able to partake in this kind of stuff where we're going down there and finding out what the heck is going on with our past. And this is what it's all built around. What's with the sacred geometry, guys? All the stuff we've decoded on Patreon regarding Mars, it'll trip you out. I promise. I promise you, if you guys haven't seen that stuff, again, I made all my stuff on BitChute visible to everybody. These are the themes that you can start uncovering in these videos. all the way back in our Pythagorean past. And also over on Theta itself, I've got, of course, this one I've referenced, but the Aryan Templar Space Alien Amnesia video alongside the Batman in Year One video will teach you much about the Martian history of humanity. So I recommend that all of you go back and see why this money reset truly matters. It's not to get rich. It's to change the world. It's to uncover the secrets from our past, to understand who the heck we truly are. And to understand the symbology behind it. Okay. So anyway, I digress. This is a real important topic for us, and I really encourage everybody to go lurk in on the Discord channel. You can, like I said, you can now, if you go to my Theta page, you can down here, you can see the little Discord icon. You can now come join my Discord channel and see what we're talking about. I changed some of the security privileges on there to where you can kind of take part and see what the conversations are, like we were referencing earlier here. But in order to partake in the community, that's where the $5 Patreon membership comes in. But again, I'll post the Patreon videos up to this point in my in the description, so you guys can access these. And then for moving forward, all of the patron videos are going to be in the private section of Brighteon. And of course, inside as a patron, you'll get the link as long to access those, and that's how we're going to be doing this stuff moving forward. But that kind of does it for what we have to get through today, guys. This is going to be an ongoing situation. I haven't reported specifically on GameStop for the reason because it goes way beyond GameStop, of course, with the actual magic component to the ritual. We've got the Super Bowl coming up on Sunday. We'll see if the Templars win at home, because got to tell you, not only is Antarctica have those secrets, Atlantis rising out of the Caribbean is also gonna have some fun stuff for us to pick apart as humans. So with that, I bid you adieu. I love you all. I hope this brings on more of the YouTube guys, the YouTube crowd, the YouTube gals, the YouTube guys and gals over to the Patreon side of things, and to see what we've been up to. It's my gift to you for the new year, and in hopes that we get some more bright minds over in the Discord proper by becoming patrons, so we can keep decoding this stuff. The $5 just keeps the trolls out. It's really all it does. So anyway, guys, follow me on Theta TV, on DLive, on Brighteon, and YouTube is where I'll be posting those videos. And also over on Twitch. I've got a Twitch as well that I simulcast to. Theta, if you haven't heard, theta.tv is going to be my main platform that I use. There's going to be a lot more engagement over there, badges and perks and stuff, and it's a real clean platform. And it ensures we can talk about stuff that YouTube won't let us talk about. I actually do stream all of my Patreon videos over there too. I don't simulcast my Patreon videos. I just stream them over to Theta. So that's kind of the housekeeping at the end here. I will obviously this is going to be edited with the first half, and then I'll repost these things to YouTube afterward. But I hope everybody does well through the rest of the week. I will plan on seeing you guys this weekend. We'll finish out Cyberpunk 2077. This is when the next time you can expect me to join you. But anyway, take it easy, y'all. Sorry for all the technical difficulties. It is Mercury retrograde, and it was in full effect today with the sound syncing, which didn't get worked out, and also the internet going out halfway through the stream. But either way, this was my first one, so it's underneath me. Take it easy.